My name is Emma, and I'm 54 years old, working as the manager of a fast food restaurant. My husband is 6 years older than me, at 60, and is the owner of the fast food restaurant where I work. We only have 2 shops in the city, and my husband manages the other location. We often brainstorm new menu items together, which sometimes leads to passionate debates. I married my husband 30 years ago when I was 24 and working at a supermarket. He was a frequent customer, and I noticed his unique way of shopping, like a homemaker. He meticulously selected items for cooking, always choosing the best deals and using coupons. One day, I saw him shopping with an adorable girl, about 3 years old. I wondered if he was a single father cooking for his daughter. He seemed slightly older than me, a tall man with a mature aura. I realized I had feelings for him, intrigued by his presence. On a day off, I saw him at a burger joint with a little girl. He was looking for a seat, and when our eyes met, he smiled and nodded in acknowledgement. I was thrilled he recognized me from the supermarket. I offered him a seat at my table, and he accepted gratefully, commenting on the busy weekend. He explained that his daughter wanted a toy from the kids' meal. The girl, Amy, was a joy to watch as she played with her toy. I asked about her age, trying to learn more about them. He shared that Amy was almost 3 and had just started talking more. He then revealed Amy's mother passed away shortly after she was born. I was at a loss for words, unable to feel happy about his current situation. He told me he had been raising Amy alone, though his mother helped significantly. I learned he was a chef at a restaurant, and his name was James. James expressed his wish to cook for Amy daily, but said he needed to work to provide for them. I realized I had fallen for James, drawn to his dedication and sincerity. With his consent, I visited his restaurant occasionally, sometimes bringing friends. We grew closer, and eventually, I was the one who proposed to him. I expressed my desire to build a life with him and Amy. James was unsure at first, asking if I was truly okay with them having a child. Amy was adorable, and I was confident that we could build a strong relationship. More than anything, I was in love. When I met James' mother, Jessica, I found her intimidating, yet beautiful. She questioned my decision to marry a man with a child, saying it was unusual for a young woman like me. Her comments left me unsure if I was truly accepted into the family. She also said that as James' second marriage, a wedding ceremony seemed unnecessary, although she acknowledged that women often dream of such events. Her words implied she did not want a wedding for her son. I assured her that I didn't desire a wedding, feeling embarrassed by the thought. Reflecting on it now, I see my naivety in the situation. She commented on my disinterest in a wedding as unusual for a woman. I sensed a hidden malice in her words. She then questioned my plans after marriage, suggesting 2 housewives were unnecessary. It seemed she intended to keep her position as the homemaker. I preferred working outside the home, so I welcomed her continued role in the household. Despite our interactions, I couldn't understand Jessica's true intentions. Our home was a small house with a garden built by James' late father. For our honeymoon, the 3 of us, James, Amy, and I, visited a luxurious hotel. Amy enjoyed swimming in the pool, and I felt she was warming up to me. I was optimistic about our future together. I hoped Amy would eventually call me mom or mother. Given that James was dad, mother seemed fitting. However, after 6 months, Amy still hadn't warmed up to me. I felt that the bond we shared had faded. At 4, she started attending kindergarten, with Jessica handling drop-offs and pickups. I felt guilty for not fulfilling the role of a mother. When I tried to help at home, Jessica assured me she had things under control. She would say, "This is my job, not yours." Her words discouraged me from assisting further. One evening, at dinner, Amy asked me to pass a spoon using my first name. I was taken aback by her addressing me as Emma. Jessica laughed, dismissing it as children mimicking adults. I was shocked and saddened, longing to hear her call me mom or mother. I couldn't bring myself to correct her, fearing I might hurt her feelings. James was similarly taken aback, but reassured me not to worry. He promised to talk to Amy, confident that she would come around. But Amy never called me mother. By the time she entered elementary school, she still avoided me. James' attempts to discipline her only pushed her towards Jessica. When Amy reached 4th grade, I wrote her a heartfelt letter. I expressed my love for her, inviting her to share her school experiences. I didn't expect her to call me mom, but hoped she'd share her school day. But she never replied. James was supportive and loving. I focused on staying positive and cheerful. Amy got her own room in upper elementary school. We saw each other less, and Jessica advised me to give her space. I lost confidence and couldn't approach Amy. When Amy reached 6th grade, Jessica approached me. She said Amy wanted to attend a boarding school for junior high. James and I opposed the idea, but Jessica was persuasive. "Emma, you and Amy haven't bonded well. Living apart might be best for both of you." I had no rebuttal. Amy leaving felt like my failure. I apologized tearfully. James comforted me, saying it might be good to try living apart. He reassured me that Amy's needs came first. James and I researched schools and visited several. Eventually, Amy chose a junior high school with a strong boarding program. Honestly, I felt a small sense of relief. I was exhausted from trying to connect with Amy. As Amy approached high school, James left his chef job to open a fast food restaurant. With the business of setting up the shop, I threw myself into work. I supported James, working from morning till night. Time flew, and Amy graduated college, found a job, and got married. She dated a coworker for 4 years before marrying him. They didn't have a wedding, just sent a photo of them in wedding attire. James and I were happy for them, content with the photo. Amy looked blissful, and I longed to see her smile in person. James' fast food restaurant opened a second location, and I became its manager. We were 25 years into our marriage, and I was nearing 50. Jessica praised me, saying I helped make the second shop a success. Her compliments were almost too much, leaving me uneasy. Amy and I had become a facade of a mother-daughter relationship. We spoke normally in public, but something was missing. Amy began calling me mother in public, but I didn't feel joyful. At 30, Amy left her job to focus on starting a family. I worried about her pregnancy and childbirth during a pandemic. But she gave birth to a healthy girl, and I was relieved. Most of Amy's updates came through Jessica. They said they'd visit once it was safe for the baby. I was jealous of Jessica's closer relationship with Amy. I was excited to meet my granddaughter, hoping for a connection. I longed for my granddaughter to call me Grandma. Amy, her husband, and the baby visited when the child turned 1. They lived about 40 minutes away by car in a neighboring city. James and I prepared gifts for the baby's first birthday and Amy's childbirth. Her husband seemed kind and reliable, putting me at ease. Holding my granddaughter for the first time, I was overwhelmed with emotion. James and I prepared a special meal and invited them to relax. We gave Amy a bundle of gifts, including a $2,000 gift card. We wanted to support her, feeling we hadn't done enough before. Amy's expression shifted when she received the gifts. She tossed the gifts into the trash bin. I was stunned, unable to comprehend her reaction. James, Amy's husband, and I all shouted in disbelief. Jessica looked oddly pleased by the commotion. Amy accused us of treating her as an unwanted child. I was baffled by her words, having never treated her that way. I had always wanted to be her mother. Amy accused me of marrying her father without caring about her. Jessica had told her that calling me mother would upset her real mom. Everyone turned to Jessica, who feigned ignorance. She denied ever saying such things, calling it a misunderstanding. But Amy was adamant, recalling her grandmother's words. She insisted Jessica had poisoned our relationship. Amy said she never received birthday or Christmas gifts from me. She never received the letter I left for her in 4th grade. Jessica had intercepted our communication. James confronted his mother, demanding answers. But she feigned forgetfulness, trying to evade responsibility. James was incredulous at his mother's betrayal. He condemned her actions, knowing they couldn't be undone. My heart ached with regret for the lost years. Amy cried in my arms as we reconciled. She called me mother, and I embraced her. We both wept for the time we'd lost. James' patience had run out, and he decided on a course of action. He told his mother she could no longer live with us. She protested, insisting she was being abandoned. But James remained firm, explaining the decision. She'd go to a care facility where she'd be looked after. She accused us of mistreatment. But James stood by his decision, citing her deception. She retreated to her room, refusing to accept the situation. The air was tense as Amy and I finally talked openly. We laughed and cried, sharing stories and uncovering truths. Amy retrieved her discarded gifts, thanking me with newfound warmth. She promised more visits, and I felt hopeful. James and I began searching for a suitable care home for his mother. We prioritized finding a place with compassionate staff and good facilities. Despite the rift, James fulfilled his duty as a son. We chose a place far away to minimize visits and emotional strain. It felt like James' last gesture of filial duty. The facility seemed welcoming with a supportive environment. Jessica feigned contentment, unwilling to admit her fault. James' quiet anger lingered, though he wished her well. Months later, the facility reported her conflicts with other residents. They asked if we'd visit to lift her spirits. James declined, urging them to care for her kindly. Amy agreed, asserting that James was being generous. She was steadfast in her decision not to forgive her grandmother. Amy visited us frequently with her daughter. I cherished these visits, wanting to savor every moment with my granddaughter. Amy teased me about calling her sweetheart, inviting me to use her name. She joked about my habit from over 30 years. Her playful remark brought us both to tears. Her bright spirit and resilience continued to impress me. On a rare day off, with James out fishing, Amy proposed an idea. She asked about the possibility of living together as a family. She explained her desire for more children and the practical challenges. Her husband was supportive, given his family's dynamics. I was moved by their adventurous spirit and welcomed the idea. We laughed about the arrangement and its potential benefits. I waved goodbye as Amy left, feeling hopeful about the future. James returned, and I shared Amy's visit with him. He noticed my happiness, pleased to see my spirits lifted. I revealed my joy at calling her Amy for the first time. His eyes shone with understanding and warmth. Despite everything, I was grateful for our family and future together.
My elite daughter-in-law shunned my 52-year-old traffic guard husband as poor. A year later, she visited after he went viral on SNS. Quote,
"Poor people are embarrassing, so we won't invite you to the wedding. This is the end of our relationship."
Oh, that's perfect timing. I was thinking of cutting ties with you too. Women don't go back on their word. Keep in mind, you're no longer part of our family. Our reasons for cutting ties with you are greater. My name is Ashley. I'm 60 years old, and I enjoy foraging for wild vegetables with my husband during our walks. In spring, we can find lots of bracken and strawberries. Living in the countryside is the best. Eating seasonal foods is good for your health and makes you feel young again. This is a story from when I was a bit younger. My husband had taken early retirement from the company he worked for many years and had been working as a traffic controller for a year. At that time, we were both 52 years old. We had passed the midpoint of our lives and were beginning to think about our remaining years. However, after my husband retired early, he no longer had to work late or live a life where we rarely saw each other. His salary decreased, but it was enough for the two of us to live comfortably. It wasn't luxurious, but we enjoyed our peaceful days together. But an event occurred that disrupted our peaceful days. Our eldest son, John, suddenly called to tell us he was getting married. I was so surprised that I asked, "Who's getting married?" John, who we hadn't heard from in a while, said it was him. I apologized for being so surprised. John, unlike his younger brothers, had no romantic relationships and had always seemed a bit absent-minded. He had never talked about having a girlfriend. But he said he was getting married and wanted to introduce her to us. I was surprised and apologized for not knowing about his girlfriend. He said they had been dating for a short time and hadn't had a chance to introduce her. He asked us to keep the following Saturday free for the introduction. After hanging up, I couldn't shake a bad feeling. John had always been a bit naive and often took on unreasonable requests from others. I remembered an incident from his school days. A classmate had asked him to let them cheat off his test, and without hesitation, he had agreed. They both got caught and were reprimanded. During university, he had almost been involved in selling fraudulent information products because a friend invited him. Luckily, he avoided trouble when he found the office empty. Given his naive nature, I worried about the situation. What if he was being asked to take on someone else's problems? I worried until the day his girlfriend came to visit. When she arrived, I was shocked. She was visibly pregnant. I looked at my husband, who was just as surprised. Our son noticed our reactions and looked at us as if to say,
I understand how you feel.
But I decided it was better than if he was taking on debt for someone else. As long as they were in a relationship, it was fine. I welcomed her and invited her in. She responded with, what an old-fashioned house. I tried to interpret her words positively. Maybe she was just used to puppeteering and was making a mistake. I looked at my son, who looked embarrassed, and avoided eye contact. I tried to stay calm and deal with the situation maturely. But the more she spoke, the worse it got. She barely knew our son, and they had only met a few times. They had met at a company mixer, had a fling, and hadn't exchanged contact details. They met again through mutual acquaintances 2 months ago, and she said she was pregnant. They decided to get married after talking it over. My husband and I were shocked. Even if that were the case, it was inappropriate to discuss such personal matters in front of his parents. But our son, being too honest, couldn't lie. I had doubts about the baby's paternity, but it wasn't something I could say at that moment. You can't suggest a DNA test during a greeting. The fact that our son had been intimate with her before marriage was enough. We had no choice but to accept it. As we were thinking, she continued with her disrespectful comments. She called our house a rabbit hutch and laughed. She insulted our teacups, saying they were too country. I tried to explain my husband's job as a traffic controller, but she wasn't interested. My husband had saved a woman's life at a construction site by shielding her from a car. He had performed a heroic act and was our pride. The woman he saved was a single mother on her way to pick up her child from daycare. But she dismissed it, asking if he got a reward. I didn't want her as a daughter-in-law. My husband scolded our son, telling him to be more responsible. We couldn't tell our 30-year-old son not to marry. We accepted their marriage. Our other sons had families and didn't rely on us too much. We wanted the same for our eldest. He felt responsible because of the baby. He declared they would manage on their own. They left, and we felt they didn't want much to do with us. 2 months later, the wedding was set. Her friend managed the wedding hall, so they secured a date quickly. We were busy with preparations. Her family ran a well-known local food processing company. But her family was against the marriage and refused to meet us. Our son often called us to vent his frustrations. He wanted to protect her, not for money. I reminded him that he needed to be prepared for opposition and couldn't rely on us. He got angry, asking if we wanted him to suffer. My husband took the phone and calmed him down. He told our son that he needed to stop complaining to his parents. Our son apologized and hung up. One day, our son and his fiancée came to our house with a request. They asked us to pay for the wedding. We were shocked. They had said they would handle everything themselves. Our son said he had savings, but it wouldn't cover her extravagant plans. I snapped, asking why her family couldn't pay if she wanted a grand wedding. She claimed it was our responsibility because she was pregnant. I reminded her that they had promised to manage on their own. She accused us of being inflexible. I retorted that she was being unreasonable. She insulted my husband's job, calling us poor. My husband angrily asked what they wanted from us. She said we needed to pay to avoid being looked down on. Our son reluctantly agreed with her. I decided we couldn't give in. If we paid, they would keep asking for more. I firmly refused, saying we wouldn't be attending the wedding. She smirked and said that was fine. We cut ties with them. Surprisingly, it felt refreshing. We didn't know if the wedding took place. Our other sons decided not to attend out of respect for us. We wanted no further involvement. A year later, they unexpectedly visited us. They rang the doorbell repeatedly. She greeted us casually through the monitor. She was holding a child. Our son stood behind her, looking nervous. She said they brought our grandchild to see us. She mentioned seeing my husband's heroic video online. They wanted to record a video with him and the child. My husband, confused, said no. Recently, my husband had saved a mother and child from a car accident. He shielded them, breaking his ribs in the process. He said it was worth it to save 2 lives. The mother turned out to be someone he has saved before. This story went viral, making him a local hero. We received gifts from neighbors we barely knew. She insisted on recording a video, saying it would make her famous. My husband refused, saying it was unfair to the child. She kept pushing the child towards him. My husband told her to stop and didn't take the child. She tried to push past us into the house. I blocked her and told her to leave. She called me mother and asked to come in. I told her not to call me that and to leave. She looked confused, not understanding my refusal. I reminded her that she was the one who cut ties. We were no longer family. She insisted, but I remained firm. My husband backed me up, saying they were no longer welcome. She protested, saying the police wouldn't do anything about a family dispute. My husband said it didn't matter. She asked why strangers were allowed in our house. My husband explained they were friends he had helped. She demanded to know why they were in the house. I sighed and explained the situation again. I told her they had become friends after the accident. She didn't seem to understand. I told her to leave again. My husband reiterated our stance. She accused us of being unreasonable. I told her to stop being rude and leave. She refused and tried to argue. Our son looked shocked and confused. I told him about the missing items from our house. My husband confirmed it. Our son was stunned. I showed him the online listings of our missing items. He was speechless. She admitted to taking them. She said her parents were stingy and didn't give her money. I told her that was no excuse for stealing. She tried to justify her actions, but I didn't let her. Our son called her behavior the worst. I asked if the child was really his. She looked nervous and avoided answering. Our son demanded an answer. She finally admitted the truth. I told them to leave and take the child. We closed the door on them. Later, our son sent a letter. He had done a DNA test and found out the child wasn't his. He apologized and said he had divorced her. He asked to reconcile with us. We refused. Our other sons agreed with our decision. She was still trying to get back with our son. We decided to keep our distance She tried to get support from her family, but they rejected her. She was left to fend for herself and her child. Meanwhile, we enjoyed our peaceful life. My husband had retired from his traffic controller job, and we lived on his pension. We had enough savings and lived comfortably. The rising cost of food didn't affect us much. We foraged for wild vegetables and exchanged goods with neighbors. Our simple life was fulfilling. We were surrounded by nature and kind people. I was grateful for every day. Today, my husband and I planned to go for a walk. It felt like a day from our younger days. I wanted to wear a new scarf I bought. I still wanted to look cute for my husband, no matter my age.
My husband said his parents were moving in and I'd be their maid. I mentioned preparing for his secret child, too. The next day, his furious parents arrived.
My name is Sarah, and I'm just an ordinary housewife. When I was young, my mother left because my father, Jack, who was always playing around. Since then, it's been just the two of us. I don't need to explain how tough it was to live as just a daughter and father. It might be the same for other families, but in our case, it was especially difficult. My father was I remember episodes from my childhood. When I was in elementary school, there was a parent-child slumber party, but my father was too busy playing around to come. So I had to ask my uncle to take his place. In middle school, when everyone else went on a school trip to Singapore, I had to stay home because my father said we couldn't afford it. In high school, during career counseling, while everyone else was with their parents, I was alone with a teacher because my father didn't show up. These are all awkward and painful memories for me. Despite these lonely days, my best friend Heather always encouraged me. She supported me when I felt isolated because of my father's neglect. Sometimes she would take me to Disneyland, and other times we'd go shopping in the mall. She too had a difficult family situation, which might be why we became such close friends. My life started to improve during my college years. That's when I met my current husband, Jason. Jason's parents ran a small business and he grew up facing financial difficulties. Understanding his struggles, I supported him. He was always kind to me, and soon our friend Heather joined us in our outings. Looking back, those days were the happiest of my life. I never imagined that I would be in this situation at the age of 30. One day after finishing my chores, I was watching TV when Jason called.
Sorry, but I have to work overtime tonight, so I won't be able to come home.
You've worked overtime before, but this is the first time you won't be coming home.
Yeah, it's an important job, and I might not be able to come home for a few days.
Oh, I see. Well, if it's work, I understand. But it's unusual for you to not come home for several days. Feeling uneasy, I called Heather to vent my frustrations. That's the situation. I understand his work, but staying out for days? How does he handle mornings and nights? He said he's using internet cafes? What do you think? But there's never been anything like this before. Doesn't it seem strange? It might be strange, but what can we do? It's Jason's situation after all. I suppose so, but this has never happened before. Doesn't it seem odd? Odd? Are you suggesting something? I have a suspicion that Jason might be seeing another woman. How could that be? Jason has always been devoted to you. Yes, but lately there have been things that make me suspicious. Like what? Well, he seemed unusually awkward when I mentioned something the other day. And then there's the sudden overtime, which I've never heard of before. It's clearly strange. It's probably just a misunderstanding. Maybe you're overthinking it. You're probably right. But now it's getting late. Sorry for taking up your time. Even after talking with Heather, I couldn't shake off my unease. Is Jason really working overtime, or is there something he can't tell me? Unable to stop worrying, I decided to follow him. But I had no idea which internet cafe he was staying at, so I waited until he came home. Jason didn't come home for 5 days. When he finally returned, I prepared to follow him when he went to work. I waited outside his company, disguised with a hat. After a while, Jason came out, and I quietly followed him. There was nothing suspicious. He was just heading home. But if he comes home and I'm not there, that would be suspicious. I hurried back home, taking a different route, and arrived before him. What a waste of effort.
I'm home. You look tired today.
Do I? I've been at home all day.
Sorry for being late these days. No more overtime from now on.
Oh, that's good. Take it easy. Even as I wondered what I was doing, I fell asleep that night. For about half a month, nothing unusual happened between Jason and me. But then, Jason mentioned overtime again. This time, I was determined to confirm it. The day of the supposed overtime arrived. I waited outside his company, disguised again. If he doesn't come out, it's fine. If he does, then it's not. After about 30 minutes, Jason came out, looking around nervously. He didn't head towards the station, but in the opposite direction, towards a quiet area. I still wasn't sure if he was meeting someone or just shopping or eating. But my faint hope in Jason was shattered. Jason started walking hand in hand with a woman. No way. The woman Jason was with, it was Heather. My best friend, Heather, the one who always supported me. I remember feeling like my world was crumbling. After that, I lost sight of them. The next thing I knew, I was sitting alone at home. I couldn't remember what happened before, maybe because it was too painful. Could it really be true? Heather and Jason? When Jason came home after his overtime, I had to pretend I didn't know anything. It was unbearable, pretending everything was normal. I was in deep despair. But then, Jason's parents, Brian and Susan, came over unexpectedly.
Sarah, thank you for always taking care of Jason.
No, it's I who should thank you for everything.
When will Jason be home? It's already 10 p.m.
My face stiffened as I tried to keep up appearances. It was Jason's overtime day, or rather, his affair day. I thought about consulting them about the affair, but then my phone rang, distracting me. Who could be calling at this hour? I don't usually get calls this late. I checked my phone and couldn't believe what I saw. Heather? Why is she calling at this time?
Sorry to bother you, but I'm feeling really unwell.
What should I do? Despite my anger towards her, I couldn't help but worry when she said she was unwell. Are you okay? What's wrong? I gave her advice, even though she had betrayed me. After the call, I felt exhausted. I put on a bright face and returned to Brian and Susan. Sorry for the interruption. It was a friend who wasn't feeling well.
Oh, I hope it's nothing serious.
No, it's nothing serious. I'm relieved. I wanted to say that their son wasn't okay, but I missed the chance to bring it up. I told Brian and Susan that Jason had been working overtime frequently lately. The next morning, they left after thanking me. Brian and Susan are good people. which makes the situation more complicated. What should I do about the affair? Jason is supposed to come home tonight, but how should I act? Just then, another unexpected call came in. Dad? It's been a while. How long has it been? 3 years? I guess it has been that long. My father and I had a strained relationship. With all these issues with Jason, his parents, and Heather, I was overwhelmed. I started to think maybe I should talk to my father about everything. Even though our relationship was strained, maybe he could help with the situation. So, I decided to tell him everything that had happened between Jason, Heather, and me. It was such a shocking story that even my usually nonchalant father was speechless.
I thought Jason was a good guy, but I can't believe this.
I can't believe it either. And to think the other woman is my best friend.
Heather? I've known her since she was a kid, and I can't believe it. So, what do you plan to do about Jason?
That's what I want to know. What should I do when he comes home tonight? Divorce seems like the obvious choice, but just cutting ties with Heather feels... My father, sensing my hesitation, began to speak.
How could Jason do such a thing? It's unforgivable. But the way he's treated you is even worse. Maybe you should wait and discuss it with me before making any decisions.
I agree. Divorce seems too simple for what he's done. After our heavy conversation, my father left, and I was alone again. Jason, unaware that I knew about the affair, came home that night as if nothing was wrong. Based on my conversation with my father, I decided to keep my emotions in check and act normal.
I'm home. Sorry for working late again.
You're not working late because you want to. I'm just grateful you're working for us.
I'm really lucky to have such an understanding wife.
Understanding? More like being taken advantage of. Little did he know, I was aware of everything. My calm demeanor made Jason feel safe, and he began to show his true colors. I wouldn't have predicted how things would unfold. And so began the nightmare of Jason's increasing arrogance and demands. A few months passed, and Jason's mask began to fall off. At first, it was small requests, like asking me to go to the convenience store for beer. But soon, outrageous, sending me out for errands in the middle of the night. If this were the past, I would have confided in Heather, but she was the one involved in the affair. My anger was about to explode, but I managed to hold on, thanks to my conversations with my father. Then one day, my father called with a suggestion. Hire a detective to gather evidence.
You can't let Jason continue getting away with this. You need proof.
You're right. I hadn't thought about investigating.
Leave it to me. If you do it, Jason might get suspicious.
Thank you. I appreciate it, even though we haven't been that close.
That's why I need to step up now.
My father eagerly took on the task, and the results were more than I could handle.
It's a tough situation, but I have to tell you, Jason and Heather have a child together.
What? A child?
Yes, and the baby was born just recently.
Heather mentioned feeling unwell before. Was that morning sickness?
I didn't know, but it makes sense. I'm so sorry you're going through this.
I already knew about the affair, so this isn't a huge surprise, but of course I was furious. Jason and I don't have children, but he had a child with Heather, my so-called friend. And he's been acting like nothing is wrong. It's beyond belief. How could I confront him about this? It gave me a headache just thinking about it. But Jason's arrogance didn't stop there. He knew I was aware of the affair, but my silence made him even bolder. Then one day, he came to me with a ridiculous proposal.
I need to ask you something.
What is it? Another late night errand?
No, it's a wonderful proposal, filled with human kindness.
I had a bad feeling about it, and rightly so.
Let's have my parents, Brian and Susan, move in with us.
What?
It's already decided. You'll be the housekeeper.
Housekeeper? This is too much. But Jason's madness didn't stop there.
We need to prepare things for them and make the house barrier-free.
I had reached my limit. I confronted Jason about everything. And don't forget the baby supplies. You're bringing the child to live with us, right?
What? You knew?
Of course I knew about Heather.
Why didn't you say anything sooner? My parents are old. They deserve to see their grandchild. Since you can't have children, it works out perfectly.
I was stunned by his audacity. There was no way I could continue living with this man. I had planned to keep quiet until my father and I had everything ready. But I couldn't take it anymore, so I packed my things and left. I moved in with my father.
Oh, what a mess. I can't believe Jason turned out to be like this.
I'm sorry, Dad, for disrupting your plans and coming to stay with you.
It's not your fault. You've done well to endure this much. Let's move forward with our plan against Jason.
Thank you, Dad. The next day, Jason was in for the worst nightmare of his life. Jason had everything ready, waiting for Brian and Susan to move in. But when they arrived, they were furious.
You've ruined everything.
How could you do this to us?
I don't understand. What are you talking about?
My father was the biggest client of Jason's family business. But after discovering Jason's actions, my father decided to cut all ties. The plan my father and I had been preparing for involved cutting off Jason's family's business. It took time to prepare, but once it was ready, we executed the plan. My father's casual mention of ungratefulness wasn't just talk. My father is a CEO of a major company, known for his wealth and influence. However, his lavish lifestyle and numerous mistresses led my mother to leave him, leaving just the two of us. Living as a daughter with a famous father wasn't easy. During elementary school races, my father was often in Las Vegas instead of by my side. In middle school, I missed the Singapore trip because my father promised me a Mediterranean vacation if I studied at home. In high school, while everyone had their parents at career counseling, my father was absent, leaving me alone with a teacher. These experiences made my relationship with my father complicated. But because of his business ties with Jason's family, I thought he might help with the affair situation. When I explained everything to him, my father quickly took my side. Jason's arrogance had limits, and my father decided to teach him a lesson. Heather, who seemed to be my friend, probably only stuck around because we were wealthy. Jason, on the other hand, saw me as a potential asset due to my father's connections. I showed Jason understanding because of his struggles, but he only saw me as a way to secure his future. When Brian and Susan came to my father, begging him to reconsider, he refused. My father knew how much they had relied on him, and he was determined to cut ties. Not long after, Brian and Susan's company went bankrupt. Jason, who worked at their small business, also lost his job. Jason, who was once so arrogant, was left with nothing.
Don't worry about Brian and Susan. I hired them as part-time workers at my company.
Meanwhile, Jason lost everything, including Heather and their child, who fled.
It's true that bad deeds catch up with you.
Yes, and it's important to live honestly. And Dad, I hope you've learned from your past.
I've slowed down now that I'm older, but I'll keep your advice in mind.
I moved out of my father's house and into a small apartment I rented. I joined a marriage agency, looking for a decent man this time.
I cared for my distressed mother-in-law while my husband vacationed in Hawaii with his affair partner. His trip soon became a nightmare.
My name is Melissa. I'm 36 years old and just an ordinary housewife.
I have a husband, Noah, who's the same age, and a daughter, Gemma, who will soon be 8 years old. When Gemma was born, we moved into a long-awaited 2-generation house with my in-laws. Now, I live under one roof with Noah, Gemma, my father-in-law, Harry, and my mother-in-law, Sarah. I know most people think living with in-laws is a bad idea, but that's not the case for me. My husband and I both work, so having my in-laws at home has been a tremendous help. Especially with Gemma, my in-laws have been incredibly supportive, to the point where I feel a bit guilty. Sarah took care of Gemma when I was unwell after giving birth, and Harry helped by picking her up from kindergarten and activities after retiring from work. Even after Gemma started school, my in-laws have been attending her events and supporting us in countless ways. Thanks to them, Gemma is a grandparent's child, more attached to them than to Noah, who is rarely home. Even though we rely heavily on them, I've never been criticized by my in-laws. They've never complained through Noah either. Instead, they're always considerate of me who works outside the home. They help with housework, give us useful appliances, and even arrange for spa days and short trips for my relaxation. To some, these might sound like boastful stories, but for me, living with my in-laws has been nothing short of ideal. I believe the reason for my in-laws' kindness lies in their strong marital bond. My in-laws are a model couple, always smiling and conversing happily, both at home and outside. They've never argued, at least not that I've seen. They still hold hands on their daily walks and celebrate birthdays and anniversaries together, always exchanging thoughtful gifts. They are the ideal couple, showing constant gratitude and respect for each other. However, despite seeing such a perfect couple every day, my relationship with Noah is far from good. We don't openly fight or complain about each other, but our relationship is unfortunately cold. We only talk when Gemma or my in-laws are around, otherwise we communicate mainly through emails. Noah often comes home late, so we don't eat together, and we ignore anniversaries and birthdays altogether. This distance between us started around the time Gemma entered elementary school, triggered by Noah's affair. Suddenly, his work hours increased, and he started going on more business trips, which made me suspicious. After some investigation, I found ample evidence of his affair. Naturally, I confronted Noah about it. "Noah, you're having an affair, aren't you?"
Huh? What's with the sudden accusation? I'm tired from work, so give me a break.
There's no point in denying it. I know everything. I even know about the woman you're seeing, Emily, from your office. You've been using overtime and business trips as an excuse to be with her, haven't you? I was angry at Noah's dismissive attitude, so I dropped the name of his affair partner to provoke him, thinking he would be shaken and confess. But instead, I got a surprising reaction.
So what if I am? You come in here throwing evidence and names at me like you're so clever. What do you really want, Melissa? You want a divorce or something?
Noah smirked, crossing his arms and watching my confused reaction. This was supposed to be the moment where I confronted him about his affair, but why was he so confident? Trying to maintain my composure, I replied as calmly as I could. I'm not talking about divorce. I just want you to stop the affair and reflect on your actions. If you change your ways, I'm willing to forgive you this time.
Who do you think you are, acting all high and mighty? You don't want a divorce because it won't suit you. Without me, you'd lose all the benefits of living with my parents. So don't act like you're doing me a favor.
Do you even realize what you're saying? You're married, yet you're cheating on me. You betrayed me and Gemma. Don't you feel even a little guilty? Noah's lack of remorse was terrifying, but after years of marriage, I couldn't just give up.
I don't feel guilty at all. It's my money and my time, so I can do whatever I want with it. You have no right to complain.
It's not about that.
Yes, it is. You've been neglecting the house, going out for afternoon tea and spa days. My affairs are the same thing, just a way to unwind. What's wrong with that?
It's completely different. Don't compare your cheating with my need to relax. And I don't neglect the house.
Whatever. This conversation is over. If you don't have the guts to be a single mom, just shut up and deal with it.
After saying that, Noah turned his back to me and went to sleep. I was furious, but I couldn't argue any further. Just as Noah said, I wasn't confident I could raise Gemma on my own. From that day on, we started sleeping in separate rooms and only communicated when absolutely necessary. I stopped looking into Noah's affairs as it only made me feel worse. But he still worked late and went on trips frequently, likely spending time with his lover. Despite the ideal life, I had a wonderful daughter, kind in-laws, and a comfortable home. My husband's betrayal cast a dark shadow over everything. This miserable situation continued for about a year until an unexpected event changed things. The turning point came when my father-in-law, Harry, passed away. Despite being sharp and physically strong, he suddenly died of a heart attack. His death deeply affected our family, especially my mother-in-law, Sarah, who was devastated. She could barely eat or sleep, and in her state, there was no way she could handle the funeral arrangements. As a result, Noah and I took care of most of the preparations. Seeing my mother-in-law so heartbroken was painful for both me and Gemma, but Noah was different. Instead of comforting her, he harshly criticized her. I usually avoided conversations with Noah, but I couldn't stay silent when he was hurting my mother-in-law. Noah, that's too harsh. Why are you speaking to your mother like that?
What's the problem? I just told her to pull herself together. That's what she should do as the widow, right?
She just lost her husband. How can you expect her to act normally? We should take care of the arrangements for her. Be more considerate. I whispered my concerns to Noah, trying not to upset Sarah, but Noah, visibly irritated, snapped back at me.
Someone has to do it. If she's useless, that means more work for me. It's a real pain.
That's not the point. Your parents have done so much for us. The least we can do is support your mother in her time of need.
Oh, I see. You're trying to play the good daughter-in-law. But if you want to impress someone, it should be me. After all, I'm the head of this house now that my dad's gone.
Noah's shameless words brought me to tears. I loved my in-laws and wanted to take care of them as if they were my own parents. But my husband, the man I married, couldn't understand or respect my feelings. This isn't about impressing anyone. It's about family. We should be there for each other, especially during difficult times. I just want to help your mother because I care.
Yeah, whatever. You deal with it then. There are a lot of annoying things to take care of, like changing the property title and inheritance paperwork. Help her out with that, will you?
Of course, I'll help, but...
Good. Then let's get this over with. I've got the day off and I don't want to waste it.
With that, Noah patted his knee and left the room, ending our conversation abruptly. He avoided further discussion and started preparing for the funeral without acknowledging Sarah. Although there were many things Noah said that didn't sit right with me, I was too overwhelmed to address them. But the day after the funeral, I discovered something shocking. On his day off, Noah, unusually awake early, told me something outrageous as I prepared breakfast in the kitchen.
I'm going on a trip starting today. So, Melissa, you take care of Mom, okay?
A trip? What are you talking about? I stopped cooking and turned to look at him. Noah, with a nonchalant expression, continued speaking.
Yeah, I've still got a week of leave, so I'm going to use it wisely. I'm heading to Hawaii.
Hawaii? What are you thinking? This leave is supposed to be for mourning, not for leisure. A trip to Hawaii right now is outrageous.
I've already taken care of the funeral and everything. What I do with my time off is my business, not yours.
Noah tried to justify his trip with his usual selfish reasoning. Given the destination and his carefree attitude, it was clear who he was traveling with. Even though his father had just passed away and his mother was struggling, Noah was planning to take his lover to Hawaii. Realizing this, I looked coldly at Noah and asked, "You're going with your lover, aren't you?"
What's with that tone? Don't say it like that.
It doesn't matter how I say it. You're betraying your family, cheating on me, and abandoning us in the middle of a crisis. How can you do that? My words made Noah angry, and he started yelling.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going on a trip with my lover because I can't stand being around your depressing faces. It's ridiculous to make such a big deal over one old man's death. You women can comfort each other, right?
What are you saying?
Shut up, just listen to what I say. By the time I get back, make sure all the paperwork is done.
With that, Noah grabbed his suitcase and stormed out of the house. Stunned, I stood there, unable to move. I knew I needed to finish making breakfast for Gemma and my mother-in-law, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the messy kitchen counter. At that moment, I heard Sarah calling my name.
Melissa. Melissa.
Oh, good morning, Sarah. Breakfast will be ready soon, so please wait a little longer.
Thank you. I'll help.
Sarah stood beside me and quietly began to help with the cooking. Despite being an experienced homemaker, she seemed absent-minded. After a while, she spoke to me.
Melissa, I know this isn't the best time, but you don't look well. Is everything okay? Did something happen with Noah?
Sarah asked cautiously, peering at my face. Even though she was going through her own grief, she was still worried about me. If I were in her position, I don't think I'd have the emotional capacity to be concerned about someone else. Touched by her kindness, I found myself opening up to her, sharing everything about discovering Noah's affair, our distant relationship, and his plan to go on a trip with his lover. After hearing my story, Sarah began to tear up and apologized.
Melissa, I'm so sorry. It's my fault for raising him the way I did. I never meant to cause you or Gemma such pain. I know an apology isn't enough, but I'm truly sorry.
Please, don't apologize, Sarah. You haven't done anything wrong. Her voice was barely a whisper, but I felt a renewed sense of determination. Confiding in Sarah had cleared my mind, and I suddenly had a plan. If this worked, Noah would have no choice but to repent. Feeling emboldened, I shared my plan with Sarah. Sarah, this is our chance to teach Noah a lesson. Now that Harry is gone, we have to be the ones to set him straight.
But he's already a grown man. I don't think he'll change his ways now.
People can change at any age if they're willing. If Noah gets a taste of his own medicine, he'll have to reflect on his actions.
If you believe that, Melissa, then I'm with you. And I'm sure Harry would have scolded him if he were still here. Let's do it.
Sarah made a small fist in determination. The idea of punishing Noah seemed to give her the energy she had lost. After that, Sarah and I wasted no time putting our plan into action. The first step was to cancel Noah's credit cards. Since the cards were under Sarah's name, she could easily stop Noah from using them. Noah had taken Sarah's card for the trip, thinking he could use it without any issues. But now, he was stuck without access to his credit. Next, we went to a cell phone shop to cancel Noah's phone contract. Despite being an adult, Noah had been relying on his parents to pay his phone bills since he was a student. I remember being shocked when I found out after we got married. I had been paying my own phone and transportation bills since college, which I thought was normal. I couldn't believe a man in his 30s was still relying on his elderly parents for such things. Anyway, we canceled all of Noah's devices, his phone, his tablet, everything. So on the first day of his Hawaii trip, Noah was left without a credit card or phone. A few hours later, I received a call from an unknown number, which I guessed was Noah using his lover's phone. At first, I ignored the calls, but they kept coming, so I decided to answer on speakerphone with Sarah listening.
Finally. Melissa, what the hell did you do? I can't enjoy Hawaii at all. Fix it now.
What are you talking about? I thought this was important, but if you're just going to yell, I'm hanging up.
Oh, wait. Don't hang up. This is serious. I'm calling you from overseas.
As soon as I showed signs of ending the call, Noah panicked and tried to stop me.
My phone and credit cards aren't working. Did Mom mess up the paperwork? She only needed to cancel Dad's stuff, right? There's been a mistake. Can you sort it out quickly?
There's no mistake. Everything is as it should be.
Noah, I'm the one who canceled everything. I've been with Melissa this whole time, and I heard every word you said to her.
Mom? You're there too?
Yes, I'm here, and I'm not going to let you get away with what you've done. I won't spend another cent on a son who treats his family like dirt.
But Mom, that's not fair. You should be on my side, not Melissa's. I'll talk to you when I get back, so just fix this now.
You must be out of your mind if you think you can manipulate me. Don't you dare underestimate me, Noah. I've always thought of Melissa as my daughter. She's smart, hardworking, and kind. Everything a mother would want. I can't forgive you for hurting someone so dear to me.
Hearing Sarah say that made me tear up. Her words meant the world to me, especially knowing she was fully on my side against her own son.
A man who neglects his family, refuses to help with the house, and doesn't spend time with his child has no place in any home. When you come back, don't expect to find yours.
Wait, Mom, that's too much.
I'm hanging up now. Enjoy the rest of your trip.
Sarah ended the call and immediately blocked Noah's number on both our phones. We also blocked his messages on social media. With that, we could finally focus on mourning Harry in peace. Sarah gradually regained her strength, and Gemma and I were relieved to see her getting better. Of course, the pain of losing Harry would never fully disappear, but the three of us slowly returned to our daily lives. Noah came back looking exhausted, just as my leave was ending. I later learned that Noah's trip to Hawaii had been a nightmare. His lover, Emily, was a temp worker and didn't have much money. So, Noah had promised to cover all the expenses for the trip. But with his cards and phone canceled, they were left in a desperate situation. They spent the first day in Hawaii fighting and blaming each other. With no money left, they were forced to cancel all their plans and spend the trip in misery. Eventually, they had to ask Emily's parents to send them money just to get home. When Noah returned, he was furious and tried to get back into the house, but he found the doors locked. I had changed all the locks while he was away. Sarah had inherited the house from Harry and had declared that Noah was no longer welcome there. So, all of Noah's belongings were packed up and stored in the garage. If he didn't like it, Sarah threatened to send his stuff to his lover's place or his office, which made Noah quickly back down. Noah reluctantly agreed to move into a small apartment on his own, leaving our home for good. As for me, I filed for damages from Emily, but I haven't decided whether to divorce Noah yet. That's because I'm enjoying my new life with Sarah and Gemma. I don't want to leave Sarah alone after losing Harry, and raising Gemma on my own would impact my work. Besides, with Noah out of the house, I don't feel as stressed. I've decided to use my marriage to Noah for the benefit of us 3 women. Of course, Noah and I keep our finances completely separate. He now deposits a fixed amount for living expenses and child support every month. Before, Noah just handed over the household budget, but now he has to pay for his own rent, phone, and credit card bills. It's a significant burden for someone who relied on his parents for everything. On top of that, I heard his reputation at work took a hit after his affair was exposed. For the record, I didn't spread the rumors. Emily posted about the disastrous trip on social media, which led to Noah's affair becoming public knowledge. As a result, Noah was reprimanded by his boss and transferred to a different department, while Emily lost her job. She also got in trouble with her parents for borrowing money during the trip, and now has her income strictly controlled. Meanwhile, our lives have stabilized. Sarah still takes great care of Gemma and helps with the housework when I'm busy. Gemma has even started helping out, folding laundry and cleaning. Recently, she's been learning to cook from Sarah, and sometimes surprises me with her dishes. I worry that Gemma might feel lonely without her father, but she reassures me.
Don't worry, Mama. I'm used to Papa being away. I'm fine as long as I have you and Grandma.
She might just be putting on a brave face, but her words comfort me. No matter how much Noah hurt me, Gemma has always helped me bounce back. It might seem like an unusual setup to others, but I'm happy with our life now. I hope this peaceful life with Gemma and Sarah will continue for as long as possible,